Welcome to KCCK's Culture Crawl. I'm Dennis Green. Say hi to John Dowdall of Red Cedar Chamber Music, who's in to talk about the concluding concert in your 2015 series, correct? This is it, right?
This is it.
And there is a fascinating story that goes along with the history behind the visuals that are going to go with your music. So tell us about, just tell me about the Brinton Project.
Well, the Brinton Project is a marriage of the earliest silent films that is a collection of Michael Zaz, who's a great Iowa historian and collector of all things, including log buildings. But 30 years ago, he had the opportunity to buy a collection of the estate of Frank and Indiana Brinton. And Frank Brinton was a entertainer at the end of the 19th century who started off basically with travelogues, talking about his trips over to Jerusalem and to Europe, which he would then illustrate with magic lantern slides, which were the
early slide.
Yeah, they were the precursor of a PowerPoint program.
That's right.
Exactly.
Yeah, 19th century PowerPoint, yeah.
19th century PowerPoint. And as soon as moving images were invented, and that happened basically 1895 is the beginning of the film industry. A couple of brothers called Lumiere brothers in Paris had a public showing in December of 1895. They thought it wasn't going anywhere, so they turned their attention to color photography, but then it took off, and people like Georges Méliès, who's a very famous early French filmmaker, took up the torch. And that industry just took off. As soon as Frank found out about the availability of these movies, he started to order them and show them in eastern Iowa as a logical extension of the use of the magic lantern slides.
So this Frank Brinton, he was quite the character. I mean, for a while he had to be Iowa, one of the biggest stars in the nation.
He was certainly. I don't really know about the national scene, but certainly in Iowa, he was a premier entertainer. It's fun to look at their original posters, and they talk about this 2-hour nonstop extravaganza filled with moving pictures, comedy, everything. It was just a nonstop show. He was even very interested in flight before the Wright brothers launched their first flight at Kitty Hawk. And so he had a house that was built with a landing strip so that he could fly his creations onto the landing strip. Whether he ever did that or not, I don't know. But ostensibly, we know that he designed a lot of airships because we have actually the glass negatives. Michael got those as part of the collection. With the collection, he got films, he got magic lantern slides, he got their projectors, which are really fascinating as well. He got all their day books, which show everywhere they went, how much they made, gives comments about where they put up the posters, what telephone poles they put the posters up on. So it gives you a real insight into their lives, and they did over 250 shows a year. And
and remember too, that was pre-automobile.
Right, pre-automobile.
So
right.
250 shows a year is a heck of a tour today. Imagine doing it on horseback.
Back then. And they also brought along an ensemble, and that is one of the issues. How was this film accompanied? And that's one thing that we've certainly looked into in this, because in our case, we're marrying his films with the Red Cedar Trio, which is flute, guitar, and cello. Was that appropriate? It turns out that Frank traveled with a mandolin player, a violinist, and probably picked up people along the way.
So it is very close to the authentic experience, how it would have been.
Exactly. And actually, between 1900 and roughly 1930, playing for silent movies, whether it would be a solo pianist or once you got up to the major theaters, they all had their full orchestras, music directors, libraries, and that was the biggest employer of professional musicians in the United States between 1900 and 1930. It was kind of the golden age of being a professional musician.
Talking with John Dowdall from Red Cedar Chamber about the upcoming concert series, the Brinton Silent Film Project. So you got these old films
Right.
from the Brinton collection, from Michael's collection. But then you had, but of course, even though you have a sense of what instruments played, we don't have any of the music. So you had to have music commissioned, correct?
Well,
Or you do have some music.
there actually is a lot of music that was written down because, like I said, there were orchestras in the houses. So if one of the partners in this project, which is a very important partner, is Special Collections at the University of Iowa. Greg Prickman is the head of that, and they've been very helpful. They will be the actual final home of this entire Zaz collection. He's leaving it there, and it currently resides there, and they're conserving it. So this collection is going there, and Michael approached us and said, would you provide the music? So we went to Special Collections, and it turns out that they have an entire, like 17 boxes of music that came from Centerville, from either their theater or their opera house, that is marked music for film.
Okay, so period music, not necessarily music for this film,
No,
but music that was used to accompany
right.
film at the time.
And so that gives us a great idea as to what they used. And they used anything that was available. They used classical music, they used folk airs, they used pop music, they used anything that they could, Stephen Foster tunes, and often they would have it scored for full orchestra, and then they'd have a version cut down for a trio.
Sure.
So
well, and
and
this is a case where you'd have to have the music written down because you were probably using a rotating cast of musicians. You never knew from one night to the next who was going to show up, probably.
Possibly, you might have a stable of musicians. I think the most fascinating thing for me is that, and of course, sometimes you had just a solo pianist accompanying, but the range of musical possibilities was enormous. And between 1895, when the film industry started, and 1915, there were no set scores for any movie. So that means, or for very few, there were a few major composers like Saint-Saëns who actually wrote film scores, but most of the major releases came out, and they had cue sheets which told you what the action was, so that a music director or someone putting music to it knew that there was 20 seconds of an
Here's a
action
chase scene.
Right, here's a chase scene. Now we've got a love scene. Now we have someone who's scared, so put in scary music. But that was all they sent out, so that you could see the same movie in 5 different theaters, and it would have 5 different sets of music.
You'd have a different experience
Right.
each time.
And it wasn't until 1915, with the birth of the nation, that a major studio actually said, this is a score, you play this score with this piece. And then after that, the major releases started to come out with. But still, even through the 1930s, there was a lot of...
up until the talkies, it
Right.
would have been live music, even if it was a score that you were given.
Exactly.
But you would have played the Birth of a Nation score that you were given with the music.
Exactly, yeah. So a wonderful, wonderful time period. Anyway, so Michael came to us and said, yes, provide music for this. And then we started looking back into what were the possibilities. We made a decision to go with some period music, some music that was earlier than that, because they would have used Bach or anything they
Anything
wanted
they
to.
could get their hands on.
Right, anything that they thought helped to illuminate the film, because that's the function of the music. In this case, the film is the star, and we are clearly the pit orchestra, which is a new experience and really fun. And then we decided, at the time these films came out, they were using cutting-edge music too, whatever was contemporary. So we decided to incorporate some contemporary music from our existing repertoire. So we've repurposed some of the commissions we've done in the past to fit some of these films, and that means a little snipping and tucking here and there. And then we've also commissioned Harvey Solberger to write new music for the films, and he did a brilliant job on that. I love that music.
And as if this weren't enough, with the multimedia presentation that you've created, you've also got an actor portraying Brinton.
Right. And so as part of the concert, we have Michael there as a narrator to talk about the films, but then we also have a board member, John Hegarty, who's also adept at public speaking and acting, And so he is dressing up in period costume and portraying Frank Britton. And then he segues into the role, which Frank would have had in his life, of the projectionist. So that was what Frank did.
Sure.
Yeah, when he was at movie houses, he was the projectionist. And so John, on the set, we call John Frank. So we don't have two Johns. We have a Mike, a John, a Frank, a Jan, a Carrie, right?
Well, what a great way to end up the season with, and so many moving parts.
Oh,
First off, congratulations on getting all of this put together. It had to feel like a pretty monumental task, just figuring out the show.
It's been a 2-year process, and Jan and I were lucky that we got a artist retreat in New Hampshire last fall for 2 weeks, and that's where we really got to sit down and look through these films and take all the music and start to pair them up. But it's been it's been in flux, and it's been a really, really fun project. And it's really fun to have a real strong cast that we are players. It's a little bit more like being, and you've done a lot of theater, it's like being in a theater production where you're not carrying the whole load.
Right.
You're just doing your part and fitting it in at the right moment to make the show really gel.
Well, as always, you have one main show in Cedar Rapids, and then your rural outreach concert. So why don't we start with the main concert and work backwards?
Okay. We are delighted again to be doing our second collaboration with Legion Arts, which means the main show will be on Saturday, April 25th at Legion Arts Hall, CSPS Hall. Great hall, and it's designed, they've done multimedia things there before, so it's going to be a great space for this production. That is at 8 p.m. on Saturday, April 25th, and you can get tickets by going to legionarts.org, or you can call them at 364-1580, and so that's where you order the tickets for that show. Then the same day preceding that show at 1 o'clock will be these are our rural outreach performances.
Right. So we're working, like I said, we're working backwards.
Right.
So don't be confused.
Okay, working backwards, and so we have the main concert on the Saturday evening. Then we start that same day, and we have 4 rural outreach concerts. So the one just preceding that is at 1 p.m. on Saturday, April 25th, at Springville Library, and that's just a great little space, small, intimate, which these movies are perfect for. Then the night before that, on Friday, April 24th, we're in Tipton, Iowa, at St. Mary's Church at 7 p.m. All these evening rural outreach are at 7 p.m. Thursday, the 23rd, we are at Vinton, at the Vinton Palace Theater, and we're excited about this one.
That's a neat space.
Because that's a kind of a renovated space, really nice theater space, and this is the biggest screen we're going to be on. So and they've done a special format change to make this compatible with their equipment, so we're very excited about that possibility, and that is Thursday, the 23rd of April at Vinton Palace Theater, and that's again at 7 p.m. Then we start the whole series of 4 days on April 22nd, which is a Wednesday, and there we will be at the J.C. Clegg Library in Central City. Again, another kind of, it's kind of a nice, open, big room, community room in that library, and we'll be projecting on the wall, and I think that's going to have a real festive air, too. So all of these sites have their own unique interest.
It's the Britton Silent Film Project with Red Cedar Chamber. As we said, you've got music, you've got movies, you've got acting, and everything involved in this true multimedia presentation.
Right.
Main concert is a week from tomorrow, Saturday the 25th, at CSPS Hall in Cedar Rapids, and then the rural outreach concerts, as we've mentioned them. All of those are on your website, which is?
At www.redcedar.org.
And
you can find them at
Cultural Corridor as well.
.org.
And also, I just want to briefly mention that congratulations to you and Jan as you transition into retirement.
Okay.
But I checked beforehand that this is not the last time that we get to visit. Next year will be a transition year.
Right, but
it's already been announced that you're turning Red Cedar over to Carrie and to Mira.
Right, Carrie Boston
and Mira Kim.
Right.
So we'll look forward to. I'm glad that you'll be back a few times next year too.
Yeah, exactly. We'll be in full steam through April of 2016, and we don't officially retire until July of 2016. So, and Carrie and Melba working right by our sides. I'd just like to say before we get off, thanks to the Augustine Foundation, which provides the funds for this program, and also for Harvey Solberger's Commission of the New Works, also to the Iowa Arts Council, which provides major funding for this, and to Vic and Jan Nexera, and to Don and Irene Hamus, who are doing the artist sponsors in memory of their brother Vic. Brother Max Nexera, who was a big supporter of ours for many years. So that's special, too.
John Dowdall from Red Cedar Chamber. Again, Red Cedar Chamber, or redcedar.org.
Right.
If you would like more information on any of this, good luck with the show.
Okay, thanks so much, Dennis. Thanks for having me in.